Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be exploring some pretty fascinating extraterrestrial territory.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we're going to be looking at Bashar's take on two groups that you might have heard of, the Anunnaki and the Pleiadians.
Okay, yeah, I've definitely heard of those.
But here's the thing. We're not just looking at them separately. Bashar presents this really intriguing idea that they might actually be connected through a lineage.
Interesting, like a family tree almost.
Yeah, exactly, like a cosmic family tree that spans eons. And get this, it might even shed some light on humanity's place in all of it.
Okay, so for those who might not be familiar with Bashar, he's actually a channeled extraterrestrial entity.
Right, and just to clarify for our listeners,
Mm-hmm.
channeling in the simplest terms
Yeah.
basically means a person allows another being to communicate through them.
Right.
And a lot of Bashar's messages, they often focus on things like self-empowerment or understanding our reality and even connecting with higher consciousness.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so let's start with the Anunnaki. A lot of people probably know them from those ancient Sumerian myths and stories about powerful beings who might have had a hand in shaping early civilizations.
Right, the ancient astronaut theory.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And Bashar, he actually acknowledges that potential historical influence. But he also adds a really interesting twist to it.
Ah. I'm curious.
So he emphasizes that while the Anunnaki might have played a role way back in our past, they're not some hidden force that's controlling us today.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So instead of thinking about them as these puppet masters, Bashar actually encourages us to think about their story as this metaphor for humanity's own journey. You know, a
Right.
journey towards breaking free from limitations and really stepping into our power.
So you're not bound by some ancient puppet master.
Exactly.
That's really empowering.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that we have the power to break free from any limitations, even the ones that we think might come from the past.
I like that.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the Pleiadians.
Okay.
So in Bashar's view, who are they?
So according to Bashar, the Pleiadians, they're these advanced beings from the Pleiades star cluster.
Okay, I've heard of that.
And here's where it gets really interesting. He describes them as our genetic cousins. And they're really invested in helping humanity grow spiritually.
Genetic cousins. Wait, so you're saying we might actually share DNA with these extraterrestrial beings?
He even suggests that they might have contributed to the diversity in our DNA way back when.
Wow, that's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's definitely a bold claim, and it kind of pushes the boundaries of conventional thinking.
For sure.
But when you really think about the vastness of the universe and the possibility of life evolving on other planets, the idea of sharing some genetic connection with extraterrestrials, well, it might not be so far-fetched.
I guess in the grand scheme of things, we're all made of stardust, right?
Exactly. We're all connected in ways we might not even be aware of.
Okay, so we've got these two seemingly distinct groups. The Anunnaki, with their potential historical influence, and the Pleiadians, who are portrayed as these benevolent guides. But Bashar doesn't just stop there, does he? He connects them in a way that totally changes how we understand their roles.
You're right. This is where it gets really fascinating. So Bashar presents this idea that the Anunnaki, they didn't just vanish. Instead, he suggests that they went through a really profound evolution and they transformed into the Lyrans.
The Lyrans, okay. I'm not familiar with it.
And according to Bashar, the Lyrans, they became the ancestors of the Pleiadians.
Whoa. Okay, so instead of two separate groups, we have this interconnected lineage. Anunnaki to Lyrans to Pleiadians.
It's like a cosmic family tree.
Exactly. But, it's important to point out this is just one specific interpretation that Bashar offers.
Right, and you might have come across other ideas about the Anunnaki, or maybe even some conflicting information.
Yeah.
That's okay. Exploring these ideas is about examining different perspectives and weighing the evidence for yourself. Ultimately, it's up to you to decide what you believe.
Right, it's all about critical thinking. We're presenting these ideas for you to consider, not to blindly accept. But let's stick with this lineage idea for a moment. Why should we even care about this connection between the Anunnaki and the Pleiadians? What does it mean for us here and now?
Well, for one thing, it challenges us to view our history and our place in the universe from a much broader perspective. We tend to think of extraterrestrial groups as these separate entities.
Yeah, like isolated incidents.
Right, but what if they're all part of this interconnected web of existence, like a cosmic tapestry woven together through time and evolution?
Okay, I like that analogy.
And what if we humans are intricately connected to that tapestry, carrying within us the legacies of both the Anunnaki and the Pleiadians?
It's almost like we have this dual heritage, a blend of the, let's face it, maybe more self-serving tendencies of the Anunnaki and the compassionate, spiritually oriented influence of the Pleiadians.
Exactly. Think about it. I mean, maybe those parts of ourselves that we struggle with, those less than ideal traits that we'd rather not acknowledge could be remnants of that Anunnaki influence. And then those impulses towards love and compassion and that desire to make a positive impact on the world. Well, maybe those are echoes of our Pleiadian heritage.
So it's not about denying those shadow parts of ourselves, but understanding them as part of our unique cosmic inheritance.
Hmm.
And then, maybe we can choose to align more fully with that Pleiadian influence, consciously cultivating those qualities of love and compassion.
Precisely. It's about recognizing the full spectrum of our being, acknowledging our potential for both darkness and light. And that recognition can be so empowering because it reminds us that we have the power to choose which parts of ourselves we want to nurture and express. We're not just passive recipients of our heritage, but active participants in shaping who we become.
That's a really powerful message.
Yeah.
It takes away the blame and the shame and puts the power back in our hands. So if the Anunnaki, who weren't exactly known for their benevolence, could evolve into the compassionate Pleiadians, what does that tell us about humanity's potential for growth and transformation?
It suggests that anything is possible. If evolution can happen on such a grand scale, transforming beings across eons, imagine the possibilities for our own individual and collective evolution.
That's incredible. It makes you wonder what other connections might exist out there in this vast web of galactic history.
Right. What other cosmic families might we be a part of? It's a question that can really spark our imaginations and open our minds to a whole new way of understanding our place in the cosmos.
Yeah, it really makes you think, doesn't it? It's like we're all characters in this grand cosmic play with our own unique roles to fill. Exactly. And Bashar talks a lot about personal responsibility and the idea that we're co-creating our reality. He's always saying that we're not just passive observers. We're active participants shaping the world around us and contributing to the evolution of consciousness.
Yeah, that's a really important point. It's not just about understanding where we come from, cosmically speaking, but using that knowledge to make more conscious choices in our lives,
Yeah.
aligning ourselves with our highest potential.
Makes you wonder what would happen if everyone started living like that, with that awareness and sense of responsibility for themselves and their impact on the world.
It's a big question, isn't it? And it brings us back to the idea of evolution. What if we really embrace the possibility that we're all evolving, not just as individuals, but as a collective? It could totally change how we see our lives and the choices we make.
It's like we're all weaving this massive tapestry together thread by thread, each choice we make influencing the overall pattern.
I like that analogy. And it highlights how even the smallest decisions can have a ripple effect, you know. It's a call to be more mindful and intentional, to really align our actions with our deepest values.
Speaking of values, I'm curious to explore the specific qualities that Bashar associates with the Anunnaki and the Pleiadians. We've touched on it a bit, but I think it would be helpful to dig a little deeper into what each group represents in terms of our cosmic inheritance.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. So starting with the Anunnaki, Bashar describes them as beings who were very focused on things like structure, order, and control.
Oh.
They were very pragmatic and strategic, maybe even a little authoritarian in how they interacted with humanity.
So if we think about how those qualities might show up in our lives today, we might see it in our tendency to be rigid in our thinking, or maybe in our need to control situations or our fear of uncertainty and chaos.
Yeah, exactly. Those could be echoes of that Anunnaki influence, reminding us of a time when humans were maybe more externally controlled. But the important thing to remember is that we've evolved beyond that need for external control. We have the power to reclaim our sovereignty and make choices from a place of inner authority, instead of just blindly following rules and dictates.
That makes sense. So how do the Pleiadians contrast with the Anunnaki? What are they all about, and how might their qualities be reflected in us?
Well, Bashar portrays them as beings who are deeply connected to love, compassion, and unity. They really value collaboration and harmony and the well-being of all beings. And they operate from a place of profound wisdom and understanding, offering guidance with a lot of love and respect for our free will.
So if we look for those qualities within ourselves, we might find them in things like our empathy, our desire to connect with others, and maybe even our longing for a more peaceful and just world.
Exactly. Those impulses towards love and kindness and unity could be expressions of that Pleiadian influence within us, guiding us toward a higher way of being. And it's important to remember that these aren't just lofty ideals. They're actually really practical tools for navigating the world we live in and creating a more harmonious future for ourselves and future generations.
It makes you wonder how we can more consciously tap into that Pleiadian energy. How can we cultivate those qualities of love, compassion, and unity in our daily lives? It feels especially important now,
Yeah.
with so much division and chaos in the world?
It's a great question, and Bashar actually talks a lot about this. He really emphasizes the importance of inner work, cultivating self-awareness and making choices that are aligned with our values. He encourages us to practice mindfulness, connect with our intuition, and really nurture compassion for ourselves and others.
So it's about taking responsibility for our thoughts, feelings, and actions, and consciously choosing love over fear, kindness over judgment, and unity over division. It sounds simple, but I know it can be super challenging sometimes, especially with everything going on in our lives.
Oh, absolutely. It's a constant practice, a journey of growth and evolution. There will definitely be times when we stumble or make choices that aren't aligned with our highest selves. The important thing is to not give up on ourselves. Just keep practicing and remember that we have tons of support, both seen and unseen. There are forces out there cheering us on and guiding us along the way.
It's nice to be reminded that we're not alone in this journey, that we have this cosmic support system looking out for us. It makes me think about those synchronicities you mentioned earlier, those moments when it feels like the universe is trying to point us in a certain direction. Have you ever experienced that?
Totally. I think we all have those moments when everything just clicks and we know we're on the right path. Maybe it's a random encounter or a sudden realization, or even just a series of events that seem to unfold effortlessly, connecting us with the people and resources we need.
Like when the stars align and everything falls into place.
Exactly. It's a beautiful reminder that we're all connected and part of something much bigger than ourselves.
Definitely. And Bashar reminds us that we can actually participate in that cosmic dance. We can use our intentions and choices to co-create a reality that reflects our deepest desires and values.
That's so powerful. It's not about passively waiting for things to happen. It's about actively engaging with the universe and taking inspired action, recognizing that we're co-creators of our reality.
And trusting that we have the wisdom and guidance we need to navigate whatever comes our way. We might not always see the whole path ahead of us, but we can trust that we're being supported and that we have the power to create a more beautiful and fulfilling reality for ourselves and everyone else.
That's a beautiful thought, and it fills me with so much hope and optimism, especially when the world feels so uncertain. It's a reminder that we always have the power to choose love over fear, unity over division, and peace over conflict.
And that choice is ours to make every single day, in every moment, with every thought, feeling, and action. And all those choices added up together, well, they're going to determine the future of our planet and humanity.
It's a big responsibility, but also a huge opportunity. We have the power to create the kind of world we want to live in, a world where love and understanding prevail. And it starts with each of us making a conscious effort to live by those values.
It's a beautiful vision.
Yeah.
And I really believe it's possible. But it requires us to step up and take ownership of our evolution. To really become the change we want to see in the world. And maybe, just maybe as we do that, we'll realize that we're not just evolving as individuals, but as a species, moving toward a future where humanity can finally embrace its full potential for compassion, wisdom, and interconnectedness.
Yeah. It's a vision that really gives me hope.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that we're not alone in this whole process. Like Bashar says, there are so many benevolent beings out there just waiting to offer their help and support. The Pleiadians are just one example.
It is comforting to think about that cosmic support system, even if we can't physically see them. It's like having a whole team of wise and compassionate advisors cheering us on from behind the scenes. But you mentioned earlier that the Pleiadians mainly work through these subtle energetic means. So what exactly does that mean? How do they actually guide us?
Well, think about it this way. Have you ever had a moment where you suddenly get this flash of insight? Or maybe you have a dream that feels super vivid and important, or maybe you experience a bunch of synchronicities all pointing you in a certain direction. Those could actually be examples of Pleiadian guidance.
So it's not like they're beaming messages into our brains or landing in spaceships. They're guiding us more gently through our intuition, our dreams, and those weird coincidences that feel like more than just chance.
Exactly. They totally respect our free will, and they understand that we learn best by going through our own experiences. So instead of telling us what to do, they just offer these little nudges and support. They let us make our own choices and figure things out on our own.
It's like they're whispering little bits of wisdom from the stars and trusting that we'll listen and pick up on the messages that really speak to us. But how do we know if it's really Pleiadian guidance or if it's just our own imagination?
That's a really good question. And honestly, there's no guaranteed way to know for sure. But Bashar gives us some helpful tips. He says to pay close attention to how you feel when you receive an insight or message. Does it feel loving and compassionate? Does it make you feel like you're expanding and growing? Or does it feel kind of scary or manipulative, like it's feeding your ego or coming from a place of fear?
So if it feels good and resonates with your heart and gut, it's probably worth exploring more. But if it feels icky or leads you down a negative path, it might be time to reconsider where it's coming from.
Exactly. It's all about tuning into the energy behind the message. And remember, you always have the power to choose. You get to decide which guidance to follow and which paths to take.
That's a good reminder. We always have a choice. But I think it's also important to admit that we're not going to get it right all the time. We're human. We make mistakes. How does Bashar approach that part of our journey?
Well, Bashar always says that making mistakes is a normal part of learning. They're not something to be ashamed of or try to avoid. In fact, he actually believes that our mistakes often teach us the most valuable lessons. If we're open to learning from them, that is.
So instead of beating ourselves up when we mess up, we can use those experiences as opportunities to grow and change. It's about accepting that we're not perfect and realizing that we're all constantly evolving.
Exactly. And it's about being kind to ourselves and others when those mistakes happen. We're all just doing the best we can with what we know in any given moment.
It's a good point. It definitely takes the pressure off a bit. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Anunnaki, the Pleiadians, and this fascinating lineage that connects them, what are some of the key takeaways you hope our listeners will remember?
I really hope they take away the idea that we are all part of this incredible cosmic story. A story of evolution, transformation, and interconnectedness. We all carry within us the legacies of our past and the potential for our future, and we have the power to choose which parts of those legacies we want to express. We're not alone on this journey. We have so much support from all these amazing beings of light who are guiding us toward a brighter future.
I love that. And if our listeners want to learn more about Bashar and his teachings, where can they find more information?
There's a ton of stuff available online and in libraries. You can find Bashar's books, channeled messages, and even videos of his sessions. Just search for Bashar and you'll find a whole world of information to explore.
Awesome. And I encourage everyone to approach all this information with an open mind and a discerning heart. Take what resonates with you and leave what doesn't. Trust your gut and allow yourself to be guided by what feels true. It's been awesome exploring all of these mind-blowing ideas with you today.
It really has. It's always fascinating to dive into these topics with you.
And to all our amazing listeners out there, thanks for tuning in and joining us on this cosmic adventure. Remember, you are loved, you are guided, and you are capable of incredible things.
And as always, we would love to hear your thoughts and insights. Feel free to leave a comment below, share this episode with your friends, and keep the conversation going.
Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content.